What's up, nerds? Nan Man here for another episode of Nan Man's Nerd Corner. We've been on hiatus out of nowhere. We disappeared for a little bit, and I apologize, but if you're wondering why we disappeared, why there hasn't been podcast episode lately, there's been a lot of real life stuff going on that we'll talk about briefly. Not as much because this is not a co-host episode, as you guys have come to know and love, but we'll explain a little bit why it's not a co-host episode and what we're going to be talking about today, because it is going to be all about TCGs and updates and fun stuff like that. So it's been about, I would say, about a month or so since we've had a co-host episode, and that is in part because our co-host got married. Woohoo! Congratulations! So that's very exciting for Jaime. He did get married, so we were all AFK celebrating and doing all that fun stuff. In addition to the wedding stuff, the YouTube channel, Nan Man's Nerd Corner, has been kicking into high gear with our content related to the history of Magic the Gathering and Modern, putting out kind of video essays, very short, concise things, like trying to shoot for 5 to 7 minutes. Let's just kind of, hey, take a few minutes. Let's learn about this old time of Modern, the days of the past that, pre-Modern Horizon days is kind of the way that we're viewing it and looking at it. So that's been fun to go through and post up videos. We've been doing that. I want to say we have our 4th or 5th one just came out. But we've, been talking about things like Birthing Pod and creature-based decks, talking about Eldrazi Winter and what that's looked like. So talking about different ban lists, talking about different decks. We talked about the only card to be banned twice in Modern. So if any of that stuff sounds interesting or exciting to you, go over, check out the YouTube channel, give it a subscribe, just like you would be spreading the word, let people know about the cool content. So that's been a big chunk of what we've been doing, which means that the podcast stuff has sadly been on hiatus. We're building up. We want to talk anime. There's going to be an anime episode coming up with my co-host. It's going to happen. I keep teasing it. There's been some cool stuff that's been going on in the anime world, like the live action One Piece. We've had a bunch of big cool stuff with Gear 5 for One Piece. If you know, you know. If you don't, you better learn, because it's super cool. But it's been really exciting stuff going on in the anime world. So we want to talk some anime stuff at some point. But TCG wise, things are really interesting. So at the time of recording, we're about to have a ban announcement for Magic, and I'm hoping that we're going to see some unbans. I'm hoping that we're going to see some bannings, and I'm one that's more pushing the unbanning side than banning, but I am feeling that Fury is the biggest problem in Modern. A lot of people are talking about, Rakdos scam being an issue, and it's like there was a meta breakdown. I want to say Frank Karsten or one of those guys put it up on Wizard's site and was like, hey, here's Modern by the numbers. 22% of the Modern meta is Rakdos scam. Which, if you're not sure what that means, it means that the Rakdos Evoke decks, the one that took down the Pro Tour, is still dominating, crushing. Being able to grief somebody on turn 1 and strip their 2 best cards is extremely hard to deal with. Not only that, they have access to Fury, so playing Fury early and being able to have that double striker and start swinging in for 8 damage on turn 2, 8 damage on turn 3 is a clock that most decks cannot keep up with. It's too good of a deck, and I want to see Fury gone. Grief is annoying, but without the extra backbones of things, like Grief is able to be dealt with, I feel like, more so than Fury or things along those lines. So I want Fury gone. A lot of people are talking about, the One Ring's a problem. It is, but it's not as much of a problem as it was when the set first came out. There are specific decks that are utilizing it, and those are Tron. There are a couple of the Golgari Yawgmoth decks that like to have it in there. The Beans, if you're thinking about the Omnath decks, are running that as well. But the Omnath deck is also sitting there and saying, hey, we're running the new Bean enchantment that lets you draw a card on play and draw a card whenever you cast something that costs 5 or greater. And not just a creature, because, why would a green enchantment only care about creatures? That doesn't make sense. No, we wanted to make it the best draw spell in the game of Magic by saying anything you cast that costs 5 or greater. And all these evoke cards that we've been seeing, like Fury, are of course costing 5 mana, but you can pitch a red card and cast it for free, so it doesn't matter, and you still get a draw card. So again, Fury's a problem. We want to get rid of it. At least I do. I like creature decks, so getting rid of Fury is where I'm at. The One Ring's annoying, Bean's annoying. It jumped the Omnath deck back up to number 2 in kind of the overall meta of most popular decks, and even that is nowhere near the percentage or the amount that Scam is kind of currently sitting at. So that's one of those interesting things of like, there's pieces that keep showing up that are a problem amongst these decks. Really, Modern's just a mess of a format, and sometimes it's great and crazy and chaotic, but as of right now, it's in this weird period where it's like, well, everyone's doing broken things, but the people that are doing the most broken things clearly have figured out the best deck, where I would rather play Modern, where it goes, okay, there's a top 8 and we have 6 different decks in the top 8. All right, you might have some duplicates or things like that, or certain pilots that are playing very well, but I prefer that version of Modern compared to, hey, here's a top 8 and 4 of the top 8 are playing the exact same list. And we've seen these periods of time where majority of people start piloting things, things like Eldrazi Winter and stuff like that, or Hogak, and like these periods of time where everyone goes, yes, we're all in agreement that this is the best deck, this is a problem, and we're just going to play it until something happens and prevents us from playing it, meaning something gets banned. So it's like this unspoken thing amongst the Modern community that we all kind of know something's going to happen to the deck. We don't know what specifically. I would love to see Fury go compared to anything else, but we'll see. We'll see what actually ends up happening. So, we'll probably do an actual video up on YouTube once the ban announcement happens, and you guys can see more stuff about that. Or actually, probably by this time, they might both be out at the same time, this podcast as well as that video, based on timing of things. We'll see. So, things are interesting with that. Preordain got unbanned in Modern, so you can scry 2, draw a card. Better version of Serum Visions. So Serum Visions essentially got like people said soft ban by saying, well, now you're not going to run Serum Visions, because you do your scries beforehand and optimize what you're going to draw. But all these drawing effects, like really the only main decks that are caring about that, we're seeing, of course, Murktide, Death Shadow, those sort of decks, and even Murktide, was considered one of the best decks for a long time. It's definitely in the top 4, top 5 in that argument of best decks. Yawgmoth Golgari's up there as well. It's hard not to argue for those. Like there's cool decks that exist, but even then, they're not top tier compared to Beans, the Omnath deck, compared to Scam. Really, the decks that are like Murktide feels very fair in comparison to what other people are playing, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to cast a bunch of cantrips, and then I'll play this big Drake-looking guy here and try to fly in and deal some damage to you. And that's my game plan. I'm going to win through combat and swing a couple times and hopefully get you, and I'm going to run some removal. That's just like Unholy Heat, some Lightning Bolts, stuff like that to kill any creatures that might be in the way. And we're going to hope for the best. That's kind of the game plan, but it doesn't really hold up when people are casting spells for free, which I don't know. You guys have heard me. I'm not a big Modern Horizons 2 fan of the Evoke stuff, because the Evoke stuff of the past that we're mainly used to, all right, were cards that you still had to pay mana into, all right? Like Mole Drifter and things like that, you still have to pay 1 and a blue, or even that 5 cost 1 and a black for evoke to kill a non-black creature. There was ways that people were doing things, but I don't know, the evoke stuff, like free spells have always been a problem in Modern, and they've always been slowly getting rid of them, right? There used to be a time where Gataxian Probe was an amazing card, and that became too good, so they got rid of it. All right, Gataxian Probe, Phyrexian mana, or 1 blue. Look at your opponent's hand, draw a card. I was able to get the day 2 of a GP back in the day off the back of that when I was piloting Infect. So it's like free spells are a problem, but not when they sell product and they are newer cards. But power creep and everything like that. We've had this discussion so many times, guys. You already know it. So that's the kind of Modern update stuff that's going on with that. But Modern and Magic are not the only things that's going on. There's been Commander stuff too that we'll kind of briefly talk about before we get into a new TCG that we've been learning. So the way things have been going with Commander, we've had a couple of sets. The Wilds of Eldraine came out. There was 2 Commander decks that came out with it. I picked up the Fairy one because I am a huge fan of tribal style decks. Right, this one tribe in Magic that I'm going to go on. I've got so many. I basically have my own little mini cube of, hey, you want to play one of these specific creature-based decks? I've got you. What do you want? Vampires? No problem. Zombies? Sweet. Let's do it. Angels? Yep, we got that too. All right. So it's like I like having all those because they're fun. It's a very easy and straightforward style for other people to play and understand. So like if you go, hey, I got friends that come over that don't play Magic as much, you want to play a game, here we go. Pick which one you want. What tribe would you like to play? That came out. The Worlds Beyond, or whatever they're calling it, Doctor Who just came out, so I picked up all 4 of those because I am a Doctor Who fan. Watched it. I will admit that I did fall off during Capaldi's time. Like, I watched all the Souffle Girl adventures and all that stuff post Capaldi and going through all that stuff with him, and got to see some of the cool stuff about with the our sword fighting dinosaur lizard chick and her lesbian friend, and like all that adventures that they got to go. Like, I saw some of it. I didn't finish it. Didn't see any of the 13th Doctor. At some point I'll probably go around to it, but like 9th, 10th, 11th, that period was kind of my big one. Huge fan of David Tennant's time period, especially with Rose and all that. Like, all that stuff was so good. So yeah, I was very excited with the Doctor Who stuff. I wanted to pick it up. Picked up all 4 of them. I'm gonna open 2 of them. Any guesses which 2? I mean, I kind of gave hints already, but yeah, I'm going to do some timey-wimey stuff. And then I'm going to open the villain one. I feel like that's a good set of 2 to open. So if I ever end up playing just, hey, let's do some one-on-one Commander, here's 2 decks that are from the same pod, and it has the plane chase aspect, which I love the plane chase stuff. So I'm excited to be able to do that and do some plane chasing and have some fun with that side of things. But I have a couple of precons now. Once I open those 2, that'll put me at 5 precons that I haven't touched or upgraded. Like I talked about, I had the fairy one, but I went through and did some changing. All right, I had some other fairies running around. Like I have multiple copies of Bitter Blossom from Modern back in the day when I had like a black-white spirit deck that's no longer viable in Modern. So I have a bunch of copies of Bitter Blossom, so I threw that in. That like there's different fairy stuff that I was like, this will be fun. Let's add this in here. Like Kindred Discovery or one of those like other Kindred cards that's not in the list I put in. Like there's a couple of cards along those lines that I updated. So I didn't do too crazy of an update because I tried to keep it like very much in the tribal side of things, but I have a couple of precons that I just did not upgrade and did not touch. So the Doctor Who decks are going to be 2 of those that I'm not going to upgrade, I'm not going to touch. I also have the 40k one, the Tyrannid one, because that was the first army that I got into in 40K, so I wanted to get that built, and that's kind of my, all right, that's going to stay as my 40K pre-con, and I'm not gonna adjust that. I also, my first ever pre-con, I did do some slight upgrades to slight upgrades, not that many. It was the it's Morphin Time one where you put stuff face down. I had a bunch of old, like, from the Scourge and that set and like Onslaught original morph cards from back in the day when I was just like collecting cards and stuff. So I put a bunch of those in there and got rid of some. So it's like, it's upgraded, but not really. It's still like the same game plan. So, but that's, same thing with like Shorekai, and got that as a pre-con and just sort of I had a bunch of extra vehicles lying around and stuff. So it's like, it's still that same mentality of like, here's two ones that are slightly upgraded without really pushing them to, where they can really compete with some people. Where it's fun to have just basic pre-con, because I have a couple of my buddies that are from college that are just now getting into Commander and getting back into Magic. We played, during college, and we played kitchen table, all right? And I would make those sort of tribal-based decks of like, I had a vampire deck that ran 4 captivating vampires, and its goal was just say, I'm going to get a bunch of captivating vampires out, and I'm going to steal all your stuff, and now I'm going to have a vampire army, and it's going to be a lot of tapping and untapping and fun stuff. So, like, I would make decks like that, and we'd play kitchen table on that and big free-for-alls. But now, Commander didn't exist back in that day, or at least in the sense that it was. I don't remember when Sheldon really kicked it off, but, this is 2010, 2011, 2009, like that time period of playing kitchen table Magic. So it's cool to see them start to get into it. My buddy, of course, big Lord of the Rings fan, so he got 2 of the Lord of the Rings deck, the Food Hobbit one and Eowyn. So he's got those, and so I have a Lord of the Rings. I got the which one did I get? I got the Elf one, and I broke it apart and split it into 2 decks. One that was an elf deck, so I made a green-black elf deck for kind of my collection of tribal decks, and then all of the voting-related stuff I used to make a brand new voting deck, because I thought it'd be fun to just sit here and durdle and do nothing and make people vote, because it adds a whole different aspect to the game. So that was fun. I played both those decks. But yeah, my buddy that played Lord of the Rings decks played with his brother, and then he was like all in again and was like, yeah, I'm going to go buy a bunch of decks. So it's going to be a whole thing. I don't know. Magic's a lot of fun to play with people. And so, teach people the game. But there's a new game that's happening that is now kind of on the radar and got me very excited to learn and play again. I've always been a TCG fan. We've talked about it for years, but the One Piece card game, One Piece TCG. It is relatively new to the world in the sense that the 4th set, Kingdoms of Intrigue, just came out in September in America. They are a set ahead in Japan, and that's kind of, usually how that works when it comes to it. Also, because of the way that works, is cards that are Japanese or printed in Japan are not legal in U.S. tournaments. Safety first, and wording is slightly different. It's like a whole thing. So, very cool to be able to start playing it and learning it, because it's so early in the release of it. All right. What's fun about it is it kind of pulls a little bit from so many different card games. So we'll talk a little bit about it. And I've been doing a couple of giveaways too, like just here's starter decks online for people that wanted to be able to do it. And that's, of course, on Twitter. So if you aren't following me on Twitter, @TheRealNanMan, I've been doing some giveaways every couple of months. Magic cards, has been the main stuff, but I gave away a couple One Piece starter decks because, why not? It's fun. Learn it. It's great. But let's talk a little bit about the card game itself and why it's so cool and unique. A part of it is you have a leader, think like your own commander, In the same aspect of each leader has specific colors to it, whether it's a monocolor or multicolored. There are no 3-color or 4-color leaders at the moment. There's only 1 and 2 colored leaders. So if I have a red leader, just like in Commander, I can only put red cards in it. If I have a blue and black one, then I can only put blue and black cards. They have all kind of your colors that you might expect. All right, we've got red, blue, green, all right, those kind of normal Magic stuff. But they've also got purple. They also got yellow in there. I mean, yellow's kind of white, so just add it. They have their own color scheme for it. Each leader, of course, has their own ability. They have attack power, just like all the characters do, that are more like Yu-Gi-Oh! Attack power, right? These things are 1,000, 2,000, all the way up to like 7,000, 10,000, right? They're big deals. Your life total is based on how much life your leader has. Most multicolored leaders have 4 life, with a couple exceptions here. If you have a monocolor leader, you tend to have more life. And your life total is tracked just like Pokemon. And if you're not familiar with Pokemon, you have prize cards, right? You have 6 prize cards. You collect all the prize cards at the end. Guess what? You have died. Or you kill your opponent's Pokemon, and they are drawing their prize card. And if they run out of prize cards, they die. Same sort of concept in One Piece TCG. So if I have 4 life and if I collect all 4 of my prize cards, and then you attack me again and I have none left to draw, well, then I have died. So that's kind of a fun little aspect. The resource management is like Hearthstone. If you've played Hearthstone or seen Hearthstone, every turn you'll get an extra mana crystal in Hearthstone. In One Piece TCG, it works out as if you go first, you get 1 Dawn, is what it's referred to as. That, of course, changes. If you go second, you start with 2 Dawn. And then every turn after that, every player gets 2 more Dawn, capping out at 10, just like in Hearthstone where they cap out at 10. That Dawn can be used to cast spells, cast creatures. It is very much like a control battle where you're often casting stuff at instant speed. You're countering and buffing your creatures to keep them alive. You can only have 5 creatures out at a time to help defend and protect your leader. Of course, that is set up with just like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules, right? You can only get 5 out at a time. But it is very, very fun because you are like, okay, I have this 5K attacker coming at your 5K leader. A tie actually goes to the attacker, so it forces the person defending to discard cards from their hand to buff their creature just for that specific attack. It's not even until end of turn. There are specific ones that will, but it's been a lot of fun learning the decks and learning how to play and just kind of going through and trying to figure everything out. So I've been having a blast being able to kind of learn the game because, again, it's so new. It's fun because all the stuff is like very, very similar to other TCGs. So it's been like, oh, okay, cool. I understand how this concept works because I've played this game, or I understand how this concept works because I played that game. And so it's pretty easy to be able to pick up and learn. Plus, the art's super sweet because if you have watched the anime or even the live action, a lot of these characters go, oh, I recognize that character. Oh, I know this scene. I remember this part. You know, lots of cool synergy stuff. There is, of course, metas and regional tournaments and things like that, but you don't have to. You can just pick up starter deck and just battle with your friends to learn how to play. So I'll do more discussion. I'll wait and, have a full thing with my co-host Jaime when we talk about anime. We'll talk about, the One Piece TCG, and we'll get into it more because we kind of went all in, and we'll talk a little bit about why we went so all in once he's there, and because he's mainly to blame for this. So well, once he's there, he can explain himself to everybody there. But that's kind of our update of what's been going on. There's been a lot happening, at least TCG wise. So figured you guys should get an update for things. But yeah, keep an eye out. We'll be getting back into the swing of things. More podcasts, more episodes over on youtube.com/NanMan. But thanks so much for tuning in and listening and watching, and we'll see you guys next game.